Item 10.35, Resolution 21-260 is a resolution of the Municipal Council of the City of Jersey City to adopt the findings in the Memorandum of Understanding regarding the construction and operation of the Liberty Science Center High School.
Okay, someone's on for this.
Hi, I'm Paul Hoffman from Liberty Science Center.
Hi, Paul.
How are you?
Good. So Paul is here to answer any questions.
Yeah. Paul, this is going to be a county school, Paul?
Yeah, it'll be a county-wide school with each district being able to send their most science-interested students.
Okay. What are the other 11 municipalities? I've been getting calls from people because of the crisis in the Board of Education. What are the other 11 municipalities donating towards this school? Or what are they doing? Or what is the county? We're giving $2 million. What is everybody else doing, Paul?
I don't know what the other municipalities are doing. I know that the county is guaranteeing the operating costs of the school, along with the contribution from Jersey City.
Yeah, well, the other towns should be contributing too, because if they're going to include all 11 other municipalities within the county, they should all be kicking in also, because we have a crisis in the Board of Education, and I've received about 20 calls from people on this. I'm all for it, Paul, so don't misunderstand me. But I think the county should take the full responsibility of the school then, just like County Prep and the other school they have.
Well, my concern is with the school, since it's going to be a county school, and I know just dealing with county schools generally, it's always a challenge for some children to get in based on, they may need they need extra help to reach a certain level. So because this is going to be like a STEM school, my concern is for the kids that may need extra help to get to that level to even get into a school like this. So is there a program in place that can help them get to that level?
There will be. So each district will get to send schools, the number of students proportionate to the number of students in that district. So everybody will be able to do that. And then we will create programs. We've already raised $300,000 for 7th and 8th graders that are really into science, but maybe their skills in math are behind some of the other children who are entering the school. So we will work with them to get their skills up so that they can enter the school on equal footing with other students.
And since the school, so there will be a ratio of how many kids from each municipality get into the school? Like Jersey City, is they awarded like 20%, see Caucus, 10%. Is it, how will that be, divided? To make sure if this is going to be a county school that Jersey City have the appropriate number of representation of students there.
No, absolutely. So Jersey City will have the most number because the number of students in the district is way greater than the other districts.
How many students would there be?
400, 100 a grade.
Okay, and then it would be proportionate per grade, I guess, like let's say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a third of the students in the county roughly are in Jersey City, so a third of the slots at least,
Now, Paul, you said you're going by the students, or are you going by population of the municipalities?
The
students in the district.
The student age population is my understanding.
And what's the racial composition? Is there going to be a quota set up for, let's say, 25% Black, 25% Asian Pacific Islander, 25% white, 25% other, like 25%? I mean, I'm not getting the percentages correct right now, but I'm just saying, is there going to be some sort of system in place to ensure that, this school is diverse, that this school represents the diversity of not just Jersey City, but Hudson County?
I mean, I think that's why the plan is to make sure that each district is allowed to send, a certain number of students to the school. I'm not aware of, the county is running the school. I've not heard other filters for the selection of students.
Question. So I know at one point in time there was this Councilwoman Franzeri conversation about this being a charter school and then a public school, and now it's a county high school. So can you walk us through how and why these decisions were made and why it's not going to be a Jersey City public school?
Okay, well, it is a public school, so it's a traditional public school, magnet school, but it's a county school, and it was a simple basic reason, and that there was a funding mechanism for building a county school, and that's the county can guarantee and float bonds, where there wasn't a public funding mechanism for constructing a city school at this point. It is that simple. I mean, that $45 million roughly in bonds will be floated to for the construction of the school.
To that end, Paul, this is Councilman Lavaro. How was it determined that there was a funding mechanism via one pathway versus another? And I'll say this is that I literally just had a conversation with a bond counsel about the idea, in large part because I was talking about Jersey City Public Schools and their funding crisis, that they do have the capacity to bond now that they have local control restored to them. The other option here is that the Jersey City Redevelopment Agency, which has also been acting as a real estate developer in this whole project in that regard, they have the ability and capacity to bond, which we've utilized that capacity as well from Jersey City standpoint. So I'd like to know, as you said, from that there's a funding mechanism there, but how much of this was explored with the idea of looking at it as a Jersey City public school? So I'm going to take a different tact and just say my assumption here going into this, more so than I think others, is that I'm not in favor of a county school, right? So this is Jersey City donated 12 acres of land. I would like to see every single seat. When we talked about this, Jersey City children having an opportunity to have a world-class STEM education, a culture of innovation, a culture of technology, and the future, and opening those doors up to them. And I would love to see every single seat go to Jersey City's kids, frankly. And I'm going to fight for it. So I'd just like to know how from March 2017, when we first approved this, which I was very much in favor of this idea, to today, what conversations were actually had with anybody to even look at the possibility and the opportunity for making this a Jersey City public school or even a Jersey City charter school, for that matter. But and I'll say that I've already spoken to Superintendent Walker, who's informed me and said I could say this on the record, that he's had no conversations with anybody throughout the entire his tenure as a superintendent at this point. And I'm going to guess that there's been very little to none with Dr. Lyles, but I've not been able to reach her or communicate with her directly about this. So I'd love to hear your explanation on that, frankly, and
so we
and how we
both the previous superintendent and the DOE that there wasn't an obvious funding mechanism. That the fund at that time, I have not had conversations in the last couple of months with anybody there. With the school's been, drawing board for quite a while.
Is Corporation Counsel on the line? Because I believe in order for the Jersey City Public School District to bond for it, they would need to put a question on the ballot, the way our schools are currently. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in order for them to do these kinds of capital expenditures, they would need to put this on a ballot as a ballot question. And that was the difference between a type 1, type 2 school that was debated a while back. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that one, Councilman.
Well, we have enough problems and financial problems with the Jersey City Board of Education right now. It's better off having the county pay for it, where 11 municipalities will chip in and pay the expenses of this school. I mean, we have enough, as I said, we have enough problems right now.
Our kids aren't getting the seats. I don't see how that's how we
He
solve.
didn't say that. He said that they are going to get the seats.
We'll get a proportion of the seats on the land that we donated. Let's be clear about that, right? It's our 12 acres of land. I just want to be clear about that, right?
So Peter, could you find out the answer to the question that Councilman Saleh wants?
Yes.
Concerning that, please.
Council President, if I can, just
Go
to
ahead.
kind of chime in on this conversation. You know, we've been working with Liberty Science Center and the county to ensure that Jersey City can get its maximum potential of, with the agreement in place, that the city gets its most available seats as possible. And in addition to that, following up on Councilwoman Prinzari's question, you know, like any other school that you're going to build out, it's kind of built out step year by year. So there is a potential of possibly expanding past the 4 years, but you know, just as a start, it would be, you know, essentially get the 400 students in the 4 years, and then, you know, possibly through the fundraising and the expansions that, you know, we would go to K-8 or you know, whichever appetite there would be for that.
I should also add, and I hope to be able to make an announcement about this shortly, they are working on another idea to very directly help high school students in Jersey City who want to get jobs when they graduate. And it's a program called High Schools of the Future that would involve our working with the schools to train students who wanted to be trained for 21st century jobs that they could get when they graduate, and getting pre-commitments from employers to actually hire those students out of the schools. And we're working on that, and we're putting that together. So that will be a very direct program, which is different from this. This is a STEM academy. We've all seen from the pandemic that science is more important than ever to our collective future. And we want to be able to graduate students that are going to ward off the next pandemic. So we're doing two things on the high school front. One is to work with lots of high schools, and we'll be able to announce that shortly, on a job readiness program.
And are there admission standards required for application to this STEM Academy?
County hasn't developed them yet, but they will. And it's going to be, you know, science interest and science talent.
Yeah. So my concern there, and I mentioned this when you came to us a couple of months ago, I forget when it was, and you talked about this, that science interest should definitely be a major driver there, I think. But science talent can be measured in a whole host of ways. So I'm going to be blunt and speak bluntly about it, right? So an urban school district, right? Black and brown children fall farther behind by the 8th grade going into high school than any other population, right? So in urban school districts particularly. So we are essentially, if those standards and whatever those metrics are to allow for application and admission, even though they're Jersey City kids, and I'm the Asian kid, and I know there's the stereotype of the Asians who are able to, like, their parents push them into the science and STEM and so forth, and moving in that direction, and how much many of them succeed and excel in the STEM areas, then we're really going to, like, we're not providing an equitable playing field, an equitable opportunity, frankly, for our kids here in Jersey City, many of whom coming out of Jersey City public schools, unless we can get some guarantees that in fact there's that admission process is not going to be based strictly on kind of what one's standardized grades were in science or math and things of that nature, even though that as well as their grades overall. If there's a high interest in in being in there, I think that should be the driver there more than anything else. And then you'll have to use your innovative pedagogical methods to be able to bring those kids, those students up to grade and up to.
I mean, definitely. That's why we're going to create programs, and not just them. We already have $300,000 devoted to that, because it's not going to be just traditional testing that will determine whether a child is science interested and science talented or not. So we share your concern on that. By the way, the 300 budget for the school is about $7 million a year, judging by similar schools that are in the state and that the county runs. So that the county will be guaranteeing is $7 million a year.
Mm-hmm. So that was my concern in the beginning. Like, what about those kids? So you saying that there will be a program that would be set aside to help them get to the level that they need to get into a school like this, correct?
Yes.
Because that was my concern, because I know when it comes to a certain group of children, they just need a little assistant. You know, they may have that talent, but maybe lacking in another area that will qualify them for the school. But if they had the support and programs, they can get there. So I want to make sure that that program is in place.
I mean, absolutely. And that's why we're trying to work with elementary schools throughout the city and to start children very young in the sciences. This is not the only answer. I mean, right now we're working with PS 34, you know, the Barack Obama School, and an after-school STEM program. We're in the 4th year of that now, to try to maintain that natural curiosity that all kids have in science, so that they'll, you know, want to go into sciences later. So we really need to start young, and that's what we do as an institution. So we're always open to doing that with any school in Jersey City. And
okay.
Question about the 300,000 strictly for Jersey City schools?
I'm sorry,
or is it 300,000 strictly for Jersey City schools, or is it for all county 7th and 8th graders?
It's for all county. That's the amount of money that one donor, generous donor, committed to this. So that doesn't mean we can't create other programs.
But that's not strictly for Jersey City.
Right.
No, it can't be. It's a county school. Once it becomes county, that means everyone in the county can apply. That's with all county schools. My concern is if they're going to make this county, okay, Jersey City has to have a good number of students in there. And we have to have a mechanism in place to help those who have challenge in science and math. Because after all, it is in Ward F.
So what is the current, I guess, selection process for the county schools? Because I know that I think the bottom line here is that a lot of us have concerns because we seem to have difficulty getting our Jersey City kids into the county schools currently. So is there just one board, like the county, I don't know, board that selects the students for all their schools, or does each school have an individual board that reviews their selection process?
So my understanding, and again, the county will run the school in the end, but my understanding is that a fixed number of seats based on the student population will be guaranteed for each area within the county. So,
okay,
you know, Jersey City will get like a third of the seats or whatever it is. So no matter what. So you, for starters.
Yes, but how do they determine which kids? I guess is the question. So if we're getting a third of the seats, and then we have, I don't know what a third of those seats are going to be, but we have 20,000 kids from Jersey City that want to get into the school. What is, I guess, the determining factors that would choose out of that batch?
So, I mean, that will need to be developed, but that it's, you know, that'll be a work in progress. And yes, it has to be, you know, equitable, and screen for science interest, which doesn't mean the students that get the highest scores on an Algebra 2 test, okay? It means, but you know, we want to end up with ones that would really benefit from what's going to be unique about this school. You know, we have the largest planetarium in the Western Hemisphere, and we work with scientists that win Nobel Prizes and present their work there. So students that want to go into astronomy would be perfect match for that school, regardless of what their math test scores may be. But, you know, so again, it's just one of our school initiatives. We really hope in a much larger way before this school even opens to roll out this job prep program that will work with, you know, some of the most challenged areas in the city, because they could benefit the most from their students graduating and being able to go right into jobs if they choose to.
So this is Councilman.
Here is a board. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut one off.
Thanks, Council President. Just wanted to ask a question. So the BA said this, and Mr. Hoffman has referenced this, but I just want to be clear. There's nothing in this agreement or any other agreement that guarantees a certain number of seats to Jersey City above and beyond any normal county school, even though we're contributing both the land and a $2 million annual operating cost. I just want to make sure that I'm accurate in stating that.
Yes, and I mean, all those details haven't been worked out yet.
Sure, and I guess this is my concern, and to say to the public, I understand where Councilman Lavaro is coming from and saying, like, you know, could Jersey City as a city have bonded for this, and all the seats have been to Jersey City, which I think would have been you know, potentially the ideal. It's just hard for me to see, if we're going down the county route, to say why Jersey City is contributing double in both land and $2 million, but not getting a significant additional portion of the seats for our kids. In essence, we're putting land and money into.
I can answer that. I can answer that, James. I'm on the call. It's the mayor, so
Okay.
I'm happy to delve into that when Paul is done. I'm happy when Paul, if Paul, if you want to defer to me, I'm happy to answer that.
Sure.
You know? So yeah, I think, James, like, people who are saying that it's a gross misrepresentation of what happened there. SciTech City was donated by the city with the JCRA's help. Some of the council members sat on the JCRA at the time that they advocated for it. And the idea behind it was not just the high school. The high school was added on as part of the concept. It was an entire ecosystem that would create scientists. And that's the reason that we did it, and foster a global brand for Jersey City around science and technology. And that included wet labs, that included visiting scientists, that included EdgeWorks, and that included an incubator for 200 plus businesses. And data shows that the majority of those businesses create their headquarters, if it tends to be a global headquarters, within a very, very, very small radius of where they're founded. And so there were all sorts of benefits for Jersey City. At the time, the council said that the only thing that they requested was that it was a Jersey City public school. And there was pushback at the time, even around charter school versus a public school. And we said we would work within the framework that the council outlined for us. So when we did this in the past with Explore 2000 downtown, the county apparatus committed to us that 60% of the kids, which is higher than the percentage of Jersey City is for the entire county, would be Jersey City residents at Explore 2000. And it's right now 66%, with hundreds of applications, which speak to the demand that parents want to go to some of these county schools and have options. And so we explored with them this apparatus because there was no other mechanism to create the same type of educational opportunity, the same type of flexible curriculum, and we're having a cost saving for Jersey City residents. When people say you're paying $2 million, it is a massive discount to what the Jersey City taxpayers pay per school right now, which is multiples of that. So if you look at what we're paying, if you have 200 students there, if there's 400 students, it's 240 that are committed to Jersey City. And if you're paying less than $10,000 per student, which is a huge discount to what we pay for the Jersey City public school system. So I would argue that you're actually saving taxpayer dollars by going this way, and at the same time creating an option that parents want. And it's clear with the demand of applications and the requests that you all see coming in every single year. So if there's any additional question, I'm happy to drill down on any of that, but it's, you know, this is a good thing, and it's really sad that it's falling into in the social media world into a political conversation, because at the end of the day, I think the facts on finances, the facts on the history of SciTech City, the facts of parents wanting options for education, the economics of this, and the fact that the Jersey City Public School was offered this opportunity with the previous administration, but they didn't have a mechanism to do it. All of those things lead to it being kind of a layup for the Jersey City resident and taxpayer.
So, Mayor, just to respond on one very specific point.
Yeah, sure.
I'm looking for kind of, at a minimum, something written in writing in stone on the commitment to the percentage of kids for Jersey City. Because if you're saying that's what it is at Explore 2000, it's not in the agreement that's before the council as of today.
Well, it was the same mechanism that we used on the county, and they're ultimately back in Explore 2000, and they've exceeded that. And, you know, we didn't hold them to it in writing because, you know, ultimately is a county school, but they've kept their word and exceeded it every single year. And at the same time, even if you look, and even if you were to say that it was the sheer percentage of Jersey City is to the relative county and proportion of the school that way, it still is a financial savings for the taxpayers of Jersey City, still with that process in place. And that's not what they're saying to us. And at the end of the day, it's not a choice here between the Jersey City public school, this being a traditional school, or this being a county school, because the public school said that they have no mechanism to build it, and they have no mechanism to create the same flexible board and the same flexible curriculum that is coveted or what we're going to do over here. So the choice is essentially having no school, which is an option, and it would be unfortunate because it's a cost savings ultimately to taxpayers and an option, or partnering with the county and have them build us a school and ultimately creating another great option for Jersey City residents. So it's similar to what we did with Explore 2000, and that has worked. And beyond that, even if you say just the sheer percentage is exactly what we are proportional, which is what it was prior to Explore 2000, we're still saving money for Jersey City residents.
You also have a situation where private philanthropists have donated $5 million to a public school. Okay? They don't have control over this school. And so that is something which is very unusual that we've been able to bring to this.
The $2 million and the $5 million, you said $7 million to operate the school earlier. Is that how the school is going to be operate, or is the county contributing some money yearly?
No, the county, let me speak to that. The county, this is going to fall within the county structure. And the only reason that the county is doing this is because we requested it, as we know that what the demand is within Jersey City. I mean, again, you all see it every single year, and I know you all do. So we requested it, and it was based on this kind of idea of what we wanted to do. And then ultimately it's a major cost to build and construct a school. So Paul went out and was able to figure out a mechanism with the HCIA, private dollars, that would allow the construction in Jersey City for a brand new public school. And when people say, I just want to go back to the fact when people say, and I said this to one of the council people who I feel like this is getting into kind of the political world, unfortunately, yesterday, when they were commenting, well, I want it to be a 100% Jersey City school. And I said, it's a really good talking point, but let's look at that for a second. Let's say you're able, the public schools can't build it, but let's say you're able to build a school that's 100 students and 100% Jersey City public schools, right? Is that a better option than having 240 seats in a county school, 240 seats dedicated to Jersey City? Our job is to provide opportunities for people, the best opportunities possible. And I'm just going to reiterate what was said to some of you on the phone. This is not at the expense of the Jersey City public school system. We have committed a lot to the Jersey City public school system in the last year alone. We're building them a new school, the annex to PS16, which was done via Jersey City taxpayers. We committed $14 million on the JCMUA. You all voted 2 weeks ago on a shared service agreement for everything from SALT to helping crossing guards. So we continue to help them every which way that we can, and we're going to continue to find ways to help them, but it's not a this or that conversation. We can do both and give parents a great option here.
Mayor, where's this 240 number? I think I got lost.
Well, 240 is because the county is committed, the schools of technology have committed 60% of the kids to be Jersey City residents, similar to what they did at Explore 2000. Hopefully it's more than that, but they've committed 60%. I mean, I'm saying this on the record here. So, and this is for everybody to see here. So if it's 400 seat school, as Paul outlined, it is going to be, you do the math, 240 seats dedicated to Jersey City students. And I just want to say one thing that I know that you might as well say it here on the call that you touched on and the council president specifically touched on, is that she wanted to ask specifically about hard to reach and more vulnerable communities, making sure that they have access and they get the opportunity at these seats. And what we said to the council president, she was really a strong advocate for this, is that we would allocate some dollars towards extracurricular activities to get kids that are interested in science but may not test as well up to be able to get into that school and test into it and achieve there ultimately. So similar to what we did in the police department with Paco and the Latino community, it was a hard to reach community. We invested in training and partners in order to make sure that we correct that. And you could see the results for that. And what we said to the council president is that we're willing to set up a program to make sure that the south side of the city actually has an infrastructure around it to support children getting into this school with real dollars.
Now, Paul, I have one more quick question. We're going to start at 9th grade, and then next year it's going to be 9th and 10th, and then the following year 9th, 10, and 11. Is that a fair assumption, or is it going to be the 400 students from, day one?
I think that I would defer to Paul on that, but I think that the right model, and I think that many of you have been involved in education before, and most of these schools phase in by some way of 1 year after the other, right? So it's not all at once that they open it up to 400 students. It's generally starting at 1 grade or 2 grades. I defer to Paul on the schools of technology on that part.
Yeah, I mean, pedagogically, that would be the best way. And look, realistically, you're not going to have students switch in their last year of school. So I think it's better to build it up. By the way, my CFO wrote me a note. Of the 300,000 that we already have, most of that's for Jersey City. I was mistaken when I said that was for the whole county. Probably 225,000 of that will go toward Jersey City.
What money is that referencing?
One donor put up $300,000 for programs for 7th and 8th graders that want to go to the school but may not test well in traditional ways, to help them with, like, if say their math skills aren't up to stuff, that we're able to work with them for a couple years, so if they enter with the same math skills that any other child who enters the school does.
So this is
So
Council.
75%.
Want to make one final point here. Mayor, I hear some of the things you said. I just want to state, clearly, from my perspective, I don't trust a sort of agreement with the county unless it's in writing and signed and we can point back to it. And, respectfully, this is the current leadership of the county promised 2 years ago to exit an ICE contract and broke their promise, and it wasn't in writing. And 5 years from now, it might be a totally different leadership. So maybe this group will abide by their word, but they won't. So I think, being the stewards of the taxpayers' money, we, at a minimum, we need their agreements in writing, and then we need to be able to understand how the percentage was determined, and see if we can get more for Jersey City.
Well, James, I would just say then, if that's where if look, I don't want this to become tied into a conversation around the ICE contract. I don't think it's fair for the thousands of kids that covet spots in different types of high schools in Jersey City. But if you feel that is the position that you want to take, then I would say then you should just defer to the standard protocol of all of the county schools, which is proportional admission to the population. And then if you're looking at 40+% per Jersey City, then that you could just do the math. At 160 seats, it's still a massive discount to taxpayers, and it still is 160 plus kids that would have an opportunity at a great school. So I don't really see that as a main driver or a reason not to vote for it. If you don't believe it's 60%, I mean, that's your prerogative. But at 40%, it still is a home run for Jersey City residents.
So since we've been
Go ahead,
utilizing,
Yolanda.
I'm going to make a couple of points, and then Explore 2000 has been referenced repeatedly by the mayor. So what I'd like to see is that 66%, those numbers of Jersey City residents and the other municipalities, and get the report on that. But I'd like that report to be broken down by demographics and by geography in Jersey City. To provide that, I think every council person should look at that and make sure that if that's the model for admission that's going to be utilized across the board, to make sure that that's the model that you want for Jersey City's admissions for our children to go into this proposed school here at the county, this proposed county STEM school. And then the second thing I'd ask is that look, I'm glad that you talked to the council president about proposing these programs to help help uplift students with their skills, their math and science skills. But to be clear, it sounds to me like that was a recent conversation, right? So it didn't go into the overall planning, into this whole thing, and to the overall thinking of like how to develop the STEM academy. Those considerations weren't put into place. They weren't prioritized. They weren't at the foremost.
No,
For me,
So that's not accurate. Hold on, that's not accurate. That's not accurate. But go ahead.
I'm going to finish my statement, Mayor, and I gave you the opportunity to do that. I'm going to finish my statement. That is, for me, the priority here is the idea that we should be prioritizing our Jersey City kids. Our Jersey City kids need to be. We talked about a culture. I stood by that, and I will not denounce what I said in 2017. I stood up for a SciTech City and a vision, and a lot of other people did too. This idea that we create a culture of innovation, and people talked about at that meeting that this isn't Jersey City, and we said, yes, this is Jersey City. This is exactly who Jersey City can be for all of our children and all of our communities, a culture of innovation and a community of innovation here in Jersey City. This falls short of that, and I would urge all of the parties to kind of get back to the table on this and to really think about that. How do we really make it sure that this SciTech City, all of it, is actually beneficial and really beneficial to all the people of Jersey City?
Okay, so I want to just push back on that and say, number one, it clearly wasn't just this thought of, because Paul mentioned that they've already raised money to support it. And in addition to that, the council president and I discussed additional city resources. So I'm going to push back on that, and that is an absolute false statement that you made. That's number one. Number two is the demographics of the county schools, and I think any parent that applies and goes there would speak that it follows the census throughout Jersey City. There's no question about that. And then third, I would say, look, I think anybody can hear we're getting into the political funny season here, and it's unfortunate that that plays out as part of this. I mean, Rolando, to be fair, you were the chairman of the JCRA when this moved forward. We spoke about the county schools as an option. You were the architect of the deal. The only thing that has changed is that it's an election season right now. And that's really unfortunate for the thousands of parents that want a better option or another option for their children. So I'm just really going to push back, and it's just really disappointing, Rolando.
Yeah, and I'm going to rebut that and call that BS. All right.
I mean, you were the chairman.
Okay,
you voted. You put it through.
All right.
Rolando,
All right. Everybody,
sorry.
excuse me. Everybody said their point. Let's move on. It's all out in the open. Any other council people have any questions? If not, Sean, let's move on. I think we exhausted it enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Don, go ahead. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay.